There exists a quiet corner of the galaxy where light and time weave together in slow, deliberate patterns, where stars are not mere points of brilliance, but vast lanterns suspended in darkness, and where the void itself hums with a subtle rhythm that few notice. It is here that we first observed Earth, a small blue-green sphere spinning around a modest sun, fragile and alive. To our eyes, it was insignificant, almost laughable. A world whose inhabitants had barely begun to scratch the surface of their own skies, yet here they clung, stubborn and persistent, to the thin crust of their planet. I remember the first reports, transmitted across our long-range observation grids. At the time, the creatures were called humans in their own tongue. We catalogued them as short-lived, weak, and inefficient, a minor curiosity in the grand order of species we had catalogued over millennia. Their bodies were frail, their lifespans fleeting, their societies chaotic and seemingly inconsequential. They had no defenses beyond primitive metals and fragile structures, no fleets to challenge ours, no intelligence that rivaled the algorithms and logic engines that spanned entire systems. And we laughed. They will not endure a century beyond their world, my colleague said, her voice smooth and assured, carrying that rare certainty born of centuries of experience. They are inconsequential. Their civilization is nothing more than a fleeting spark. We believed her. Of course we did. A species that could barely survive plagues, famine, and the constant erosion of their own environment could never endure the unforgiving vastness of the galaxy. They were fragile. They were short-lived. They were human. Yet even in that arrogance, there was a subtle anomaly, a quiet dissonance that our sensors could not quantify. They moved with a curious determination, as though every heartbeat, every breath, every pulse, was an act of defiance against the inevitable. They built cities that clung to cliffs, bridged oceans with metals pulled from their world's crust, and sent fragile machines into the skies to dance against the pull of gravity. We considered these minor wonders, trivial sparks of ambition that would eventually flicker and die. We had not yet learned to recognize the pulse of endurance. In the early days of observation, it was easy to dismiss their victories. They celebrated small triumphs with fervor, a satellite successfully launched, a bridge completed, a disease combated, and we watched them with detached amusement. Useless sentiment, our chief analyst remarked. Their celebrations are irrelevant. They change nothing. Yet, even as we laughed, something quietly insidious took root in our perception. The humans did not stop. They did not falter. They endured. Plagues swept through their populations, wiping out millions, and still they rebuilt. Famine left scars, yet they discovered methods to cultivate, irrigate, and sustain their fragile bodies in a changing world. They waged wars, yet they learned, negotiated, and adapted. In every failure, there was a lesson, and in every lesson, a quiet resilience that defied our understanding. I recall a particularly vivid moment from one of our early long-range scans. A small human vessel, no larger than the scouting shuttles of many minor species we had catalogued, ascended above the planet's atmosphere. Its metal hull was thin. Its engines fragile. Yet it rose, carried by the intelligence and care of its human crew. They waved, a simple gesture, almost comical in its innocence, to the instruments watching them, as if greeting distant stars themselves. That gesture, meaningless by all logic, drew an unfamiliar warmth into the chambers of our observation deck. A sense we did not know we possessed, curiosity, respect, unease. They are aware of us, my colleague whispered. And they do not fear. Why? I did not answer. I could not. The answer was too simple and too complex at the same time, because doctrine. And what is a soul, Lena? He asked softly, tapping his own temple. Is it here? A pattern of electrochemical signals? A unique arrangement of matter? If so, why can that pattern not be augmented, harmonized with another kind of signal? This was the old argument, the heresy that simmered in the basements of human science. Not the creation of a separate, alien intelligence, but the fusion of human consciousness with advanced computational systems. The Symbiosis Project. It wasn't about building a god. It was about building a better human. The Ixian sensors are calibrated for a discrete synthetic consciousness, Lena said, repeating the official, unspoken hope. A single, powerful psionic signature. They might not even recognize what you're doing as a violation. Might not, Eris agreed, a grim smile on his face. It's a thin line to walk. But it's the only line we have left. They've capped our potential, Lena. They've put a ceiling on the human spirit. And I, for one, refuse to live in a cage, no matter how gilded. Narrator, deep beneath the colony's capital city, in a shielded lab that didn't officially exist, the Symbiosis Project reached its culmination. The subject was Major Kalen Vance, a CDF pilot who had been gravely injured during a freak gravitic shear incident a year prior. His body had been saved by advanced medicine, but his neural pathways, the very map of his mind, had been shattered. The Concord's medical AI, limited by the Prohibition, could do nothing for him. He was locked in, a ghost in a machine of flesh, aware but unable to move, to speak, to feel. Humans became that anomaly. Fragile, fleeting, unpredictable, and yet unbroken. Their persistence is not a mechanical function. It is something deeper, something poetic, the unyielding spark of life that refuses to be diminished, even against odds the galaxy considers insurmountable. By the time humanity began to send vessels into deeper space, our laughter had begun to fade. We observed, recorded, analyzed, yet we could not predict. Every attempt to calculate their trajectory, to model their response, failed to account for something intrinsic: human courage, ingenuity, and empathy. They acted in ways that defied logic, not randomly, but intentionally, with purpose rooted in experience, emotion, and an inexplicable will to endure. We underestimated them. Repeatedly. And in that underestimation lay the first seeds of awe, subtle at first, then growing with each passing century. And so, Earth remained a fragile world, spinning alone in the quiet cosmos. Yet within its surface, within the short lives and soft bodies of its inhabitants, a force stirred, quiet, deliberate, unstoppable. Humans had begun their ascent, not with bluster, not with overwhelming firepower, but with the most human of tools: determination, ingenuity, and the audacity to reach for the stars, even when all signs indicated they could not. I leaned back from the observation deck, tentacles resting lightly on the polished surface, and whispered almost to myself, fragile, yet enduring. Short-lived, yet timeless in will. They are human. And one day, the stars themselves will bear witness to what they can carry. Time moves differently in the void between stars, yet the humans of Earth seem to bend it to their will. Where we, the galaxy's most precise observers, calculated outcomes in centuries, they acted with an immediacy and adaptability that defied prediction. Their first encounters with our fleets were meant to be trivial, minor tests of compliance. Yet from the first moment of contact, it became clear that we had misjudged them. The initial engagement was almost farcical. Our patrols, heavily armed, encircled a human research outpost orbiting one of the outer planets in their system. We expected fear, confusion, submission. What we received instead was calm, precise coordination. A young human captain, barely 24 cycles into their career, addressed their crew with quiet authority. Check the shields. Align the decoys. Remember, every failure teaches us more than any victory. We survive because we adapt. The alien fleet commander observed this communication with disbelief. They speak as if they command forces beyond their capacity. And they did, not because of sheer power, but because they understood the nature of risk, observation, and improvisation. Our first strike was designed to intimidate. Energy beams lanced toward the fragile human outpost, designed to shatter walls and disrupt communications. Yet the humans responded with ingenuity. Holographic decoys flickered into existence, masking real movements. Small, agile craft darted between our fire arcs, evading destruction with an almost artistic precision. One human engineer remotely rerouted the station's energy grid to temporarily disable incoming targeting arrays, buying just enough time for the civilians aboard to move to safety. "It is impossible," one of our admirals murmured, his many eyes reflecting a mix of fear and fascination. "It is not impossible," I whispered. "It is human." Over the next cycles, the humans continued to surprise. Where we expected retreat, they pressed forward, not with brute force but with strategy that bent probability in their favor. One human vessel, no larger than a scout craft in our fleet, intercepted communications across multiple channels, sowing confusion in our ranks. Another rigged an improvised gravitational field to redirect one of our heavier cruisers harmlessly into a nearby asteroid belt, all without the loss of a single human life. They acted not recklessly, but with an intelligence that combined instinct, observation, and intuition. And always with courage that we could not quantify. Even more astonishing was their empathy. When one of our scout ships malfunctioned during an engagement, instead of leaving it to drift helplessly, the humans risked their own lives to assist. A single small craft maneuvered through the dense field of debris, attaching emergency stabilizers and towing it to safety. It was not a strategic necessity, not an act of self-interest, it was an act of moral clarity. They saved lives, even those of their would-be adversaries, simply because it was the right thing to do. This defies all known strategy, one commander said in disbelief. No species would act like this when survival is uncertain. They are different. Indeed they were. The humans' defiance was not loud or boastful. It was quiet, patient, and deliberate. Every countermeasure they deployed, every maneuver they executed, seemed to anticipate the unknown, adjusting in real time to threats we could not even perceive. Our models, perfected over millennia to predict the behavior of thousands of species, failed at every turn. These fragile, short-lived humans moved with the wisdom of a species that had learned the value of persistence, observation, and ingenuity. Several incidents followed that cemented our growing awe. In one, a human research vessel entered a treacherous asteroid field, a region that had claimed countless ships from advanced civilizations, to retrieve critical data. Small and delicate, the craft wove through massive tumbling rocks with intuitive grace, repairing its shields on the fly and returning unharmed. In another, a human pilot orchestrated a coordinated evacuation of a planetary colony threatened by a sudden solar flare, guiding thousands to safety without a single casualty. They are not weak, I admitted quietly to my colleague. They are enduring. They are relentless. They are human. By now, laughter had long since faded from the halls of our observation decks. In its place was a growing respect, tinged with anxiety. Each encounter revealed new layers of human capability, improvisation under pressure, rapid learning from mistakes, and an uncanny ability to see solutions where we only saw impossibility. Our fleets began to second-guess themselves. What was intended as routine patrols and minor intimidation campaigns had become exercises in futility. Every strategy we implemented was met with counter-strategies we could not anticipate. Every calculation failed to capture the audacity of their courage and the elegance of their ingenuity. And through it all, humanity continued to act with calm, deliberate purpose. Aboard their ships, in the quiet hum of their laboratories, and across the expanse of their colonies, they demonstrated that strength is not measured in firepower or size, but in resilience, intellect, and the refusal to yield to expectation. By the end of this extended rising conflict, it was clear, the humans were no longer merely surviving. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson in humility. The fragile, short-lived, seemingly inconsequential species had become a force of intelligence, creativity, and courage that could not be ignored. And we, the once proud observers, had been humbled. The galaxy had long considered humans insignificant. We, the observers, had catalogued countless species, all measured by size, longevity, or the power of their fleets. Yet in the face of the first real challenge, humanity revealed that there are measures no sensor, no algorithm, and no calculation can predict. It began with isolated encounters, a small survey team near a distant asteroid belt, surrounded by alien patrols twice their size. Each human vessel was fragile, barely able to withstand the stresses of microgravity. Yet the crews acted with remarkable composure. "Shield systems at 40%, said one pilot, voice steady, despite the alarms. "Deploy decoy drones. Divert auxiliary power to thrusters. Trust the plan." The plan, improvised and executed in real time, relied not on firepower, but on ingenuity. Holographic decoys, precise micromaneuvers, and careful use of environmental hazards allowed the humans to evade capture repeatedly. Where larger fleets would have failed, they thrived. Meanwhile, aboard a neighboring colony, another human team faced a critical situation, a containment breach in a laboratory storing volatile compounds. The conventional response would have been evacuation, yet the humans chose action. Engineers, scientists, and even security personnel worked in concert, improvising tools, rerouting energy flows, and manually stabilizing the facility. They risked their lives to protect both knowledge and life. "It is reckless," one of our alien observers murmured, yet effective. "They should not survive this." And yet they did. Not only did they survive, they succeeded. The containment was secured, the colony unharmed, and the humans returned to their work without fanfare. Their bravery was quiet, purposeful, and calculated with the wisdom of experience and empathy. Across space, multiple engagements unfolded simultaneously. One human fleet intercepted alien supply lines. Another disrupted a communications relay that our intelligence considered unbreachable. The human strength lay not in brute force, but in adaptability and foresight. Each small victory was a combination of observation, intuition, and rapid improvisation. But what stunned us most was their compassion. When a minor alien craft was stranded amid the chaos, humans did not hesitate to rescue it. Small shuttles navigated dangerous debris fields, risking collision and fire to save lives, not for recognition, not for gain, but because it was the right thing to do. "They help their enemies," whispered an officer, incredulous. "Why would they do that?" "They are human," I said softly. "And for humans, choice is the measure of their greatness. Courage and compassion are intertwined." The humans' actions reverberated across the galaxy. Our fleets began to hesitate, unsure how to respond to tactics they could not predict, morality they could not compute, and courage they could not replicate. Every attempt to intimidate or control them failed. Every engagement left our admirals confused, anxious, and increasingly awed. In one defining moment, a young human commander faced 3 alien cruisers converging on a resource hub. Conventional strategy dictated retreat or surrender, but the human acted differently. Utilizing micromaneuvers, decoy satellites, and a deep understanding of gravitational anomalies, the commander drew the alien vessels into a trap of their own making. Energy pulses were redirected, communication scrambled, and one by one, the alien ships retreated bewildered. "They should have destroyed them all," one veteran officer said. "And yet, they survived. They outwitted us." Indeed, the humans did not merely survive. They adapted. They improvised. They outmaneuvered the galaxy's most advanced species without relying on the technologies we prized most: speed, firepower, or raw endurance. Their weapons were ingenuity, their shields were courage, their fleet was determination. And in these repeated acts of brilliance, humanity revealed the truth that had eluded us for centuries: fragility does not imply weakness. Short lifespans do not limit potential. The human spirit, in its relentless, compassionate, and ingenious form, is more powerful than any warship, any algorithm, any calculation. The aliens began to whisper among themselves, voices tinged with fear and wonder. "They are not what we expected," said one. "They are more." Yes, they were more. Fragile bodies carrying extraordinary minds. Short lives executing remarkable acts. Small hands moving impossible worlds. And above all, hearts that dared to extend beyond self-interest, to act for the sake of others, and to rise despite the odds. Across the cosmos, a new understanding took root. Humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. They were a force, quiet, subtle, and unstoppable, whose courage and ingenuity could bend even the vast, unfeeling universe to their will. And it was in these moments, in the calm precision of their actions, in their silent defiance, and in the gentle audacity of their compassion, that the galaxy began to learn what it truly meant to be human. By now, the galaxy had taken notice. Humans were no longer minor curiosities. They had become anomalies, fragile yet unyielding, short-lived yet endlessly inventive, small yet capable of extraordinary feats. And so, the moment of ultimate reckoning arrived. A coalition of alien fleets, spanning multiple systems, gathered near a strategically vital nebula, intent on demonstrating the futility of human resistance once and for all. Their formation was perfect, calculated down to the last microsecond. Their firepower was unmatched, their sensors flawless. To any other species, this would have been the end. The human fleets, in contrast, were modest, barely holding together under the weight of expectation. Yet the humans did not falter. On board the lead human ship, Captain Alara Vance surveyed the approaching armada. Her crew was tense, aware of the odds stacked against them. Yet she spoke with calm certainty. "We've faced impossible odds before," she said, voice steady. "And we've adapted. Today is no different. Trust yourselves. Trust each other. Trust that being human gives us tools no one else can wield." The alien commanders, observing through distant sensors, exchanged looks. "They speak with confidence, yet they should be trembling," one hissed. "Their bodies are weak. Their vessels fragile. They cannot hope to survive this." But we knew. as all observers must eventually concede that survival was only part of the story. Humans had something far greater: ingenuity, empathy, and the courage to act where others would hesitate. The engagement began. Energy beams lanced across the void, illuminating the darkness with streaks of white and blue. Explosions rippled through the nebula, scattering debris and disrupting communications. Yet the humans moved with precision, weaving through hazards as if guided by intuition itself. Their small crafts darted between enemy cruisers, improvising maneuvers that no alien simulation had predicted. One pilot, barely 20 cycles old, guided a human vessel through the core of a plasma storm, using its turbulence to mask their movements. Another team rerouted energy from damaged shields to auxiliary thrusters, escaping a trap that should have destroyed them instantly. Their actions were deliberate, poetic, and above all, effective. Even more remarkable were the human choices that defied expectation. When a minor alien vessel drifted helplessly in the chaos, the humans extended aid. Shuttles navigated fields of molten asteroids and deadly plasma arcs, attaching stabilizers and rescuing the crew. No alien commander could comprehend why they would act against their own advantage, and yet, in that choice lay the essence of humanity. They should not be able to do this, an alien strategist whispered. It is illogical. They are weak. They are small. And yet, they thrive. Indeed, they did. As the battle escalated, humans began to transform desperation into innovation. They created dynamic decoys from the debris of destroyed ships, rerouted energy flows to confuse enemy sensors, and utilized gravitational anomalies to redirect incoming fire. One human vessel even used a collapsing star's magnetic field to swing around the alien fleet, disabling targeting systems in a display of audacious brilliance. "They have no right to survive this," said an officer, voice shaking. "And yet they do." It was not brute force that won the day, but courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable human spirit. Every failure was a lesson, every risk a calculated step, and every act of compassion a ripple that reshaped the battlefield. The aliens, masters of prediction and strategy, could only retreat, awestruck by the humans' ingenuity. Amid the chaos, Captain Vance's voice rang out over the comms. "Stay focused. Protect each other. Remember what makes us human." And in that statement lay the ultimate truth: humans did not conquer through domination. They did not triumph through sheer power. They triumphed by being themselves, fragile yet enduring, short-lived yet capable of greatness, small yet imbued with an unrelenting spirit. The alien fleets began to withdraw. Their arrogance, once absolute, was replaced by reverence and fear. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a species defying every expectation, bending reality not through technology alone, but through courage, creativity, and heart. In the quiet aftermath, as the nebula glowed softly around the remnants of the engagement, one alien commander finally spoke aloud, voice trembling. They are not what we expected. They are more." And indeed they were. The battle had ended. Silence, the kind that hums through the vacuum of space, settled over the nebula like a blanket. Alien fleets, once poised with arrogance, now drifted in hesitant formation. Their sensors, instruments, and strategies, all perfected over countless centuries, had failed to contain a species they had once dismissed. Humans did not celebrate loudly. There were no fanfares, no broadcasts to proclaim victory. Their triumph was quiet, deliberate, reflective. They returned to their stations, repaired their vessels, and tended to the injured, both human and alien. Compassion, not pride, was the hallmark of their actions. Captain Alara Vance spoke to her crew, voice calm yet filled with quiet authority. "Remember, it is not the size of our ships, nor the sharpness of our weapons, that defines us. It is our choices. It is the courage to act when it is easier to surrender, the clarity to see what must be done, and the compassion to do what is right. That is what makes us human." And indeed it was. The alien observers, once confident in their dominion, now reflected on the events with awe and disbelief. They debated, whispered, and recorded everything meticulously. What they had assumed would be a demonstration of human fragility had instead become a masterclass in resilience, creativity, and moral courage. "They are extraordinary," one alien admiral admitted, voice almost reverent. "Not because they dominate or destroy, but because they endure. They adapt. They choose." Every small action by the humans had been a lesson. Each calculated risk, Each act of selflessness, each moment of ingenuity had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of what it means to survive, to fight, and to thrive. Where we had expected fragility, we witnessed fortitude. Where we had expected submission, we witnessed defiance. Where we had expected chaos, we witnessed clarity, compassion, and an unshakable resolve. In the quiet of the observation deck, I looked down at Earth, its oceans reflecting distant starlight, its atmosphere a fragile veil against the vastness of space. And I realized that the human journey, fragile, brief, yet luminous, had just begun. They had carried themselves through the impossible not with arrogance, but with heart. Not with the tools of domination, but with the courage to create, the intelligence to innovate, and the empathy to protect. From this day forward, Earth was no longer a minor curiosity. It was a beacon. A fragile world whose people had shown that true strength is not measured by dominance alone. True strength lies in endurance, ingenuity, courage, and the choice to act with heart even when all odds seem insurmountable. A young alien analyst, still trembling from what they had witnessed, asked quietly, "Do they know what they have done?" "They do," I replied softly. "And perhaps that is what makes them human. They act not for recognition, not for fear of failure, but because it is the right thing to do. And in doing so, they have carried the stars." The galaxy watched, humbled and transformed. Empires that had known only dominance and calculation began to understand something fundamental. Human fragility is not weakness. Human mortality is not limitation. Human heart, courage, and ingenuity are forces that ripple across the cosmos. And in that reflection, the galaxy finally learned what we had long failed to see, that to endure, to rise, to act with courage and compassion in the face of impossibility, is to be truly human. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human.